Hello, everyone. You are listening to the Minding Mind podcast, where we live life with ease, connection, and permission to just be. I'm your host, Evelyn LeVasseur. Welcome back to another episode. Today, I am sitting down with Gulara Vincent. And let me tell you, we talked for a few minutes before recording, and I feel like you're already going to get so much out of this because she asked one question alone, and my mind was like, wow. Never heard anyone ask a question in that way or phrase it in that way. So I know that I'm going to learn as much as you are. We're going to talk a little bit about how your ancestors shape your identity. And let me tell you a little bit about her before we get started. So, Gulara Vincent is a university law lecturer turned successful healer with a thriving business. She supports healers and therapists in unlocking their power as a healer, releasing their money blocks, and feeling good enough to speak up and really market their services. She's an author of two best-selling memoirs, Hammer, Sickle and Broom, and Fragile Freedom. Gulara, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Evelyn.
I'm so excited to talk. So,
yeah, me too.
We know. Well, already, I feel like we connected very quickly ahead of time, but it just felt like instant comfort. And I did tell you that I feel like your voice just sounds so calming and comforting already, which just literally sets my nervous system in a total, I don't know, like preparedness to receive. So I'm so excited to hear all about your work today and really get into this idea that you said, our bodies literally are carrying up to 7 generations potentially of trauma.
Yes.
Let's start there.
So it's scientifically proven that our DNA contains up to 7 generations of ancestral information. So just think about the number of wars, famine, illness, tragedy, migration, turmoil that our ancestors lived through. And all that information is coded in our DNA. Now, some of that information is trying to protect us. They don't want us to experience the same hardship, for example. But it means that there could be a lot of hyper alertness or fear coded in our system. And then we don't quite necessarily know what's going on, what is driving our behavior. It's not set in stone. It's something that can be possible to shift, especially if there are some recurring patterns in the family. For example, you might notice that there are divorces. For example, there is a divorce recurring pattern of mothers being left alone with their children, or there is a recurring pattern of a parent figure dying, right? So it might be really interesting exploration in terms of looking into, wow, how am I repeating these stories in my own life? Because as children, we come in and we are so attuned to the field around us, to what our caretakers are experiencing. We may not consciously know what it is that's happening, but we might sense that there's some unfinished business.
Mm-hmm.
But how can you finish that business without experiencing it? So we absorb and take on that energy and try to resolve it because we love our parents. We want them to be well, but we can't resolve it without knowing what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we repeat those stories, repeat those patterns, and they're passed down from one generation to another.
That's
And
powerful.
yeah.
That's powerful. I mean, I would love to also believe that if we can carry the trauma, right? If we can carry like the nervous system breakdown, if we can carry the pain, I would really love to believe that we also can carry the resilience and the love and the determination, right? But what you're saying is we carry so much of it, but we really have to live it first in order to recognize that we want to do something about it. And while you were talking, I had this picture in my mind of women who are called trailblazers and women who are said to be breaking chains, which I really believe that is who I am. I recognize so much of that, seeing the patterns in myself, seeing how I am carrying on things that I'm not even proud to carry on, but then actively working to resolve them, actively working to say, I recognize this in myself. I don't judge it. And now I want to choose something different. So I love that idea that, yes, we're carrying it, but also there are ways to not let that define you. So can you talk a little bit about what is it then that makes someone a trailblazer or a chain breaker and someone who continues it without recognizing?
I love the question. And I believe that we all have our own soul journey, right? We came here with a mission, with a purpose. We may not know what it is, we may not remember, but you know that there is something that's driving you that goes beyond your circumstances, that other people around you may not necessarily understand. And we all have our own particular flavor and trajectory. So it's not necessarily linear, but there is something bigger than just our conscious mind that drives you when you are a trailblazer. And
Mhm.
I totally agree. When I say 7 generations of information, it's not negative. It contains all of the information, all of the resilience and strength and courage. I was having a session for myself actually today about ancestral freedom. And it's interesting that my grandmother, my great grandmother, was a revolutionary. So she was, very much about fighting for the freedom of the country. And then my grandmother perhaps was in her own way, but she was confined by her family circumstances. And then that skipped a generation. And my mother became a revolutionary. So she was very much, I lived through the collapse of the Soviet Union, and my mother was in the front lines. And I kind of decided that I'm going to skip it as well. So I was very much against revolutions. But then I'm doing it my way. The work I do is revolutionary. So it does come through us, and there isn't, some people perhaps are not here for it on this occasion, like, so they might live through life in a way that doesn't necessarily look like trailblazing, perhaps,
Yeah.
for us.
No, that idea of, not idea, but the term revolution has been in my heart so strong lately. Like seeing a lot of the things that are happening in the world today, I keep feeling like revolution is needed, right? Then, there's a part of me that also says a revolution is always needed, revolution is ongoing. But I am so married to the idea that revolution does not have to be something that happens in the streets. Revolution is in your heart and in your home. And it starts with conversations in your living room. I look at my daughters who are 16 and 13 now, and when I hear them share stories of their days and the way they connect with other people, I can recognize in real time that I am raising women who feel about themselves ways that I never felt about myself growing up. I literally raised them to be who I needed at that time, right? And I can also see a piece of me, the younger versions of me, heal in real time because I see the comfort and the confidence and the empathy and compassion they have for other people, but also that they give to themselves first. And I have to sit and I tell myself, well, I did that. I did that by loving me first, by showing them what it looks like to love yourself first. And now I get to watch my pain unravel and heal in myself, but also through them. And I believe in my circumstance, That is the revolution. That is the ending self-hate. That is the ending searching for validation and worthiness and love from outside of yourself. That is the cycle of teaching them that anything that you desire from other people, you have to be willing to give yourself first. And I just, that connection for me is revolution does not have to be this bloody, horrible act that we see often in TV or read about in our history books. It literally starts by changing your heart and your home and then watching the ripple effects from there.
Beautiful. I love hearing about your daughters and how they are in this world. So inspiring and so touching.
I think that so much of our existence as women has been rooted, and I mean from when we were little, literally trained that our value comes from who we are to other people. If we are giving, if we are taking care of them, if we are depleted and exhausted and burnt out, then that means we're doing a good job. And then you get into adulthood and it's like, why am I exhausted all the time? Why am I disconnected? Why am I irritated? Why am I sitting in the life that I prayed for and feeling like I don't even matter in it, right? And it really is because we were trained to neglect ourselves, trained to not have desires or dreams. And I really feel like that is my mission to help women see that everything that they desire is within them and everything that they prayed for will multiply when they see themselves first.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Love it
And
so
the work I do in terms of ancestral healing, what I
much.
love about it is that when you heal that ancestral line, you are letting go and helping 7 generations before you to let go of the burdens they have carried. We can't change the circumstances, but energetically, there is a relief and release for the generations before, but also it's for generations to come. So you're clearing it backwards and forwards, and you're already your daughters are the living proof that when we change, the next generation doesn't have to carry our burdens.
Mm.
It stops with us.
Mm. That feels so powerful, even though, to be able to look at the things that we've experienced in the past and not judge them, right? And not judge ourselves for what we went through, but to recognize that that's just data. That is literally just data. It is the reason for specific behaviors. And now that I'm aware of them, I can choose differently. But the power in knowing that you're paving the way for someone else to feel the things that you always wanted to feel, that to me, that feels like just generational healing.
Yes, absolutely.
Gulara, can you tell me a little bit about how did you even get into this work? How did you learn about it? Where did you even start?
So I started with my own journey because I have done a lot of healing. I had a lot of trauma in this lifetime, so I kept healing the existing trauma, and things were shifting a little bit, but I couldn't feel the full benefit of the healing that I was doing. And so that was the point when I realized that actually there's more to my story than just my lived experience. I went to a talk, it was back in 2010 by Brandon Bays. She created the journey method. And she was doing an introductory talk, and she said, your trauma doesn't just live in your mind, it's in your body, in your cells, in your DNA. And the truth of that landed in me so strongly. I just knew it, that just talking about my problems or doing some of the energy work I was already doing just wasn't enough, that I needed more support. So I was doing something called family constellations. And what I found is such an incredibly embodied way of working with trauma. And often what came through is the ancestral trauma, ancestral pieces, stuff that you are energetically carrying for other people. And gradually I started developing my own method through all the different modalities I studied and trained in and experienced myself, everything I've created is something that I have experienced. I have a lived experience of. It's not theoretical, it's very practical and lived in.
How do you think that people can recognize the difference between I am a sum of the things that I have been taught or carried versus this is just who I am?
Who you are is pure consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
It's an awareness, it's your presence. It is not a sum of different parts. You are bigger than your parts. And then we all have also lots of parts. There are hundreds of parts, right? The part that feels capable, the part that feels envious, the part that feels worthless, the part that is functional and shows up and does what it takes, right? So all these parts. And what often happens is that we are in constant conflict with ourselves, these parts, which are actually meaning well. They try to protect us, right? So behind each part, there is some sort of wounding, some sort of hurt. Say you were criticized as a child, there is a part that would make sure that nobody ever criticizes you. The part that says all the right things, the part that avoids any sharp corners, right? And so then all those parts are interacting with other people and with each other. And there's like a lot of noise and chaos. But actually, who you are kind of holds it all. It's just very hard to remember and keep the perspective of that whole because we are kind of constantly identifying with these parts of ourselves that are hurting or lost or distressed in some way. And we become those parts. We become like, have you noticed that sometimes when there is some conflict, you might just become that 3-year-old one who was afraid when mom and dad were shouting at each other, and you're just like, want to run away and not engage, right? So we become those parts. And actually, what's required is to come into your body, come into this moment, and feel what it's like to be more than just that part. The difficulty is that our interactions with other people is often come from that part or those parts, and we identify with them and they think, oh, this is who I am. We feel defined by those parts and those interactions. But actually, who you are is not the sum of those parts. They're part of you, but you are not them. I hope
Yeah.
that makes
I
sense.
love that description so much because it kind of alleviates the shame and the guilt that you can carry because of these parts, right? And then when you carry shame and guilt about the parts, then you start to carry shame and guilt about your entire identity. But I also love the idea that if you and your parts are constantly evolving, your identity is constantly evolving as well, right? Like how you identify does not have to be who you are for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
You know, you have choice and you have power and you have an internal system that is literally meant to guide you back to you.
Yes.
How do you
Yeah.
how do you work with women through where do you start? When someone comes to you and they say like, you know, or what is it that they say? What is it that they're searching for when they find you?
So whatever they say, and it could range from I really want to make more money, I want to share my healing gifts, but I don't know how to charge, I don't know how to receive, or to I had childhood trauma, whatever person comes with, 90+% of the time, I take them back to the womb, back to their time when they were in their mother's womb. And it's incredible how much our identity is already formed before we even came here. So say the mother was pregnant, finds out she's pregnant, and she's already got 3 children. Her hands are full. She's not ready. And she goes, oh no, or it was too early in the marriage or before marriage or whatever the circumstances. That or initial oh no gets imprinted into our psyche. What happens then is that you live your life constantly re-experiencing that kind of rejection. You might be rejected by the jobs, by your clients, you might be rejected by your partner, by your friends. And this constant sense of being rejected, we just can't put our finger on, and we can spend a lifetime dealing with individual rejections. But actually, that in some ways, the preconditions for that hurt was already laid. And this is not to judge the mother or make them wrong. It's that some of those events have that much impact on our subconscious mind. And
Mhm.
then we live life thinking, oh, I'm not wanted here, I'm not welcome, why bother? Who cares? I'm not worthy of much, I'm not good enough for whatever reason. Right. So taking back and it's almost rewiring and rewriting the energetic foundations of their life. And again, we can't change circumstances. But when people feel seen and heard and understood, validated in their feelings, something gets lifted. It's like they don't have to carry that burden anymore. They don't have to be defined by that old hurt. And
Mhm.
so when they release that stuck, suppressed, stagnant energy, the energy that it took to push that down becomes available for them to use more constructively and productively. And shifts happen in their external present day reality because they're not playing that old program anymore.
Mhm. Do you have an opinion as to what plays a larger role in your experience in life? Is it the ingrained programming? Is it not programming, excuse me, is it the ingrained cellular makeup of our experience or the environment? Or are they both equally important?
I'd say all of it because we're energetically we are part of that environment, right? Like we are part of this energetic field that we have co-created right now. And so we are perceiving that information through our bodies. We can sense, and if our environment is unsafe and volatile, then we are very much going to be impacted by that. I grew up in a very violent and unsafe environment, and I could come to the gates outside of the house and I would put out my radars to sense, was I safe to go in? Was I safe to, like, did I just need to sneak out and get out of the way, or was it okay? Like my senses were so attuned to my environment, and in some ways it has impacted my identity of trying to be invisible, of trying to be compliant, to be people pleaser, to be shapeshift, right? So it does have enormous impact, but then there is also something that innate, and it can be both positive, like there is some innate optimism or creativity, like there was already drive in me as a child, even despite all that environment, that was my true essence that was coming through. And there was also a lot that was coded in me as well. So both.
Powerful, powerful. I hear people often use the word healing as almost like an insult to others. I hear people say like, all right, knock it off. You need to heal. In the same way that they throw away around the word like you need therapy as if it were a judgment. Where me, I completely embrace healing and therapy. But how would you describe healing? What does that look like in your clients and in yourself?
To me, healing is homecoming.
Mhm.
I'm just bringing home the parts of me that were disowned, rejected, orphaned, exiled, shamed, denied, right? Like for whatever reason, at some point in our lives, it wasn't safe to show your exuberance or share your opinions. And somehow we learn to bite our tongue, walk on eggshells, hide, do not shine, don't stick out, right? So we put all those parts. And if you really kind of look behind you, you might notice that there's almost like a whole orphanage of these parts that we pushed away because they were not accepted by other people and therefore were not acceptable. And we learned to show the world the parts of us that would be okay, that would be accepted for and not criticized, denied, judged, pushed away. And so when I heal, I bring those parts home. There, I embrace them, I love them, I accept them. And so that's how I view healing.
How do you see women who embrace this healing, embrace this homecoming, but are still tethered to people who don't acknowledge that journey, who don't self-reflect, for example? How do you see the impact of the healing and then staying in the same environment that caused the pain?
Well, two things happen. When you really embrace healing, either those people go or they start changing because they will start mirroring the shifts that are happening in you. Because remember, our parts are constantly interacting with each other. And so, say you've got this big red button that your partner knows how to push, and they know exactly how to push it and when to push it. And so you heal this button, it's gone. They will try a couple of times and then it's not there, they drop it, right? And so I see miraculous shifts in relationships and can go both ways. Like I have clients who come and say, right, I want to fix my marriage, I want to save it, one session, and they're divorcing. And I had a client who left their relationship, came and said, well, I want to find new love. We did a couple of sessions. She reunited with her partner. They're still happily together 7 years on. So I don't know what's for the highest good for the client, but it will happen the best way for them and for their relationship, whatever meant to happen. Most of the time, people come on board because when you start changing, they may not like it because you are not the same compliant person you were. But if you were meant to be with that person, things will shift for the better.
Yeah, I know I can speak for my relationship where I remember so clearly the day that I had this epitome of I really am an extraordinary human being. And it was the first time I ever even allowed myself, not only admit it out loud, but to be radically honest with myself and say, I am an extraordinary human being. Just to own that, first of all, felt scary. But then to look at my husband and feel like we're so good, right? We're so good. That word just kept coming to me, good. We are good friends. We are good communicators. We can laugh. We are good. But also, good is so basic. I don't just want to be good. I want extraordinary in every part of my life, extraordinary conversation, extraordinary connection, extraordinary finances. And it was so difficult for me to verbalize that to him because knowing that he is someone who he loves me so deeply, I didn't want him to hear it as you're not enough for me, right? So there was that fear, but also with that fear had to be trust that whatever my truth is, if our relationship was meant to sustain it, it will. And the conversation from there was beautiful. And the conversation like opened up way more vulnerability between us. And we started to really learn a totally different level of connection, but also had completely new language. So, this thing that I feared even speaking out was the actual thing that helped us get to the next level of us, which I am obviously very grateful for. But I think also that looking at my own healing and looking at things that bothered me or set me off or triggered me or whatever in the past, and being able to look at them as honestly just data. Like the reasons that I behaved certain ways had reasons behind them as well. And being able to look at them just totally removed, I mean, completely removed judgment of myself. But the beautiful thing that came from that is it also removed my judgment of other people. It allowed me to look at them as, people who are also impacted by their environments and their history and not feel personally attacked at all. Just, everybody's situation is their situation. And I just feel like that brought a totally different level of peace to my everyday existence because I wasn't wrapped up in negative thoughts about anybody.
I love that.
It's just it's so grounding to feel like we're all just going through a very human experience and the judgment is just really a distraction for what we don't really want to acknowledge.
Judgment is usually our own fear,
Mm.
right? Like we don't go judging other people when we are okay.
Mhm.
We judge other people when there's something we see out there that we are not okay here. And because if we were to accept them, then we would have to feel our own stuff. And most of us would just rather put it out there. Well, not most, but many people.
Mhm.
And so when we come to that place of no judgment and just seeing people as humans, we all have lived experiences, sometimes some stuff been passed down to us, and we're just doing our best in any given moment. If we could do better, we would do better. And there are good historic reasons behind our behavior. They may not be serving us or other people in very good ways, but there are some good reasons. And if you stop and get curious about why do I do that? Why do I sabotage myself?
Mhm.
Strangely enough, what's good about that?
Mhm.
Why is it good for me to stay stuck? Oh, I feel a bit safer. I don't feel like I'll be punished or persecuted. There's something positive there, right? It may not look positive from the outside, but it makes sense to a part of you that's trying to protect you from greater hurt or damage.
And what
So
somebody then, I'm sorry to interrupt you, how does somebody then take that realization of my fear or my self-sabotage is keeping me safe to then get past that fear and be able to take a different action? What has to happen?
you need to get curious about what is it like, how is it serving me? And can I find other means of achieving the same outcome that are more positive for me? Right? It's not just going to change by itself. We are like wired on autopilot. It's automatic. Some of our reactions and responses are so well wired in our system that we can't even think. I remember there was a period in my life when I just had so much suppressed anger. Like I couldn't get angry. Like I would get a headache and then I'll be like, oh, I must be angry. I wonder what happened. So I would like reverse engineer and find, oh, so some of these, like my anger, suppression of anger was so automatic. I couldn't even see it when it was happening. It was only my body telling me something's not quite right that would get my attention. And so paying attention to when something grabs you and then getting curious about, okay, so how does this serve me? How does it serve me to stay in this job that I don't like? It doesn't pay me very well, and yet I feel stuck. I'm unable to move forward and take any different action. So, what's positive about it? And it can be quite confronting because sometimes our circumstances are challenging. And it would be like an anathema to say what's positive about it. You would immediately say, of course, there's nothing. It's terrible. I don't want this. Take it away. But it is a part of you that believes that it's the best thing for you right now. And so
Yeah.
until you befriend and understand that part and its intentions and motivation and how to meet its needs through other means, it's quite hard to shift out of that stuck place.
Yeah. I in this just maybe several weeks ago, I felt like I was being attacked in all levels of my life, right? Just a lot of personal things were happening at the same time. And I'm someone who has been very vocal about the fact that I feel things very deeply, but I've never been able to release. I have never given myself permission to just break down and cry. I've heard people talk about I was sobbing hysterically, or they say that ugly cry. I was doing the ugly cry, and I'm like, I don't know that experience. I don't know that I've ever allowed myself to release in that way. And it got to the point where one day I found myself, I just woke up so incredibly sad, just like this deep sadness, and nothing I could do would alleviate it. And I felt tears coming down my eyes, and I felt shocked for a moment. But for the first time in my life, I embraced it, right? Just let them flow a little bit and allow myself to sit in what I was feeling. And Gulara, this went on for 2 days of
Wow.
on and off
Mhm.
tears. And then the second day, I distinctly remember driving my daughter to school, coming home and sitting in the driveway, and I felt this bubble of emotion burst, and I sobbed,
Mm.
sobbed in the car. And the harder I cried, I swear to you, I felt this almost like this embrace,
Mhm.
like just let it go, right? And I sobbed and sobbed. And when I pulled myself together, I remember feeling so grateful.
Mhm.
Like, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me release that. Thank
Yes.
you for holding space for me to do that. Just thank you for allowing me to let myself feel and release something that I haven't been able to in my entire existence. And it was that difference between trying to be strong, trying to hold it all together, and then just letting myself be human.
Yes. Beautiful.
So
I
different.
love that you had that experience.
Yeah, it was very interesting to now see myself sobbing hysterically in the car and feel both sadness and just complete gratitude.
Mhm.
It was interesting dynamic for me.
So the part that says hold it all together is quite young, right? Like at some point, maybe we were told off for crying as a child, and we just make decision, can't do that again. And actually, you needed that release, and it's almost like the universe conspired to create circumstances, like almost like a pressure cooker, where it would just the bubble will pop.
So much. Just one more final thing that I wanted to ask you is how do you see this basically relationship with self, the relationship with all the parts of you? How do you see this impacting other relationships? And you even mentioned the view on money. Like, how do women specifically, because that's who we talk to most. I'm sure all humans suffer from the same type of struggles, but how do they almost sabotage their relationships with people and finances based on how they see themselves?
There are so many reasons why we engage in that self-sabotage. So I was working with a client the other day, and she was going through a painful divorce. Right in the middle of the session, she suddenly stopped and said, "Oh my God, my mother divorced when she was 37 and embarked on a study and started changing her life from then on. And she just enrolled in a course, left her marriage at exactly the same age as her mother." So some of the reasons we sabotaged our relationships is because of the ancestral stories of the almost the ingrained need to belong with our family system. Even if we don't like it, our belonging is like so fundamental to us. It's one of our most fundamental needs. And we belong through being similar. And we repeat those stories, and then we kind of sabotage our relationship and we think, what have I done? Why did I do that? And if you look back, you might notice that there might be some recurring stories in your family line that you are trying to find some positive resolution to that energy, but because you haven't dealt with the core reason why it's happening, it keeps repeating until you find some sort of resolution in yourself. And in terms of money, it's no different from any other relationship. So if money was a person and you could describe your relationship with this person, I bet that it would be very similar to some other relationships in your life because they replicate your relationship with your original carers. But whatever's unresolved from your relationship with your mom and dad, have you heard somebody saying, I've married my mom or I married my dad, right? Like there's something unresolved there. And then we repeat those patterns in all our relationships, including with money. So when you start healing the root of your relationship problems in general, it impacts money. But also you can go through the door of money. Like if you heal your relationship with money, it will positively impact your other relationships because it's the same imprint that shows up, the same recurring pattern shows up in different parts of your life.
Do you find that this healing journey of working on the relationship in yourself and other people and money and even food, how we talked about before with that consistent dieting, do you feel like this is a get to the root and address the self and watch how everything else benefits? Or is it a focus on self first, focus on relationship with money, focus on relationship with other people? Does it have to be separate and intentional?
No. Separate, it needs to be relationship with yourself, right? Like, and it can be helpful, for example, to have a particular goal that you're working towards, right? So that you don't feel overwhelmed with, I've got to heal all of me before I can make all those changes externally. Say you want to start a healing practice, for example, you are likely to hit a block immediately. You will hit the wall of, oh, where do I start? Well, okay, what does that bring up in you? Overwhelm, panic, freeze. Start healing that, right? You release that freeze, and then, okay, so what's the next step? Oh, I don't know how to bring my, I don't know how to ask for money, or I don't feel qualified enough. Heal that relationship. Okay, like where do I feel not good enough? Where do I feel worthless? So healing those aspects of yourself, and it will have an immediate effect on your external reality. It's like you don't have to go fixing the whole world to feel okay. You feel okay here, your external world will take care of itself.
So beautiful. It's so beautiful, and also it just relieves so much of the pressure to do everything at once and to be everything for everyone and to recognize how much of your entire existence is just rooted in who you are for you.
Yes.
You know,
We can't
I feel like
control,
that relieves so much pressure. That's so beautiful.
yes. We can't control other people. And a lot of our energy goes into trying to make other people, even money, behave a particular way and be something we want them to be. And we just can't do that. We try, give it our best shot. We spend a lot of energy there, but it doesn't lead to anything positive because it's impossible to make other people be anything that they're not.
Right.
But we can change ourselves. And that's so liberating and empowering to me because that's you've got something like you've got control over that because you can heal and you can meet these parts and you can change and evolve and grow. And then everything externally will respond, will mirror what's inside you.
Mhm. So beautiful. So beautiful and so empowering. Gulara, if people wanted to connect with you, work with you, start this journey, where can they find you?
I have a website, gularavincent.co.uk. I'm very happy to leave you with a simple gift, healing gift for your audience that they can benefit from, and would be very happy to connect with people who reach out.
Amazing. I'm going to make sure that your site and your free gift are linked in the show notes. But before I can let you go, the question of the hour is, in the Minding Mind community, we really focus heavily on relationship with self, being intuitive, being instinctual, living in a way that represents the soul that God gave you and not the role that society gave you. How do you think that learning to live that way for you impacts the legacy that you're going to leave?
Well, I have started doing this work. I was doing it for myself anyway. But when my first child arrived, I suddenly realized, whoa, I really don't want to pass this on. I have two beautiful children, and I very much believe that whatever I'm doing is relieving them from carrying these burdens. So it's whatever's been before me stops with me. And what I want to pass, my legacy is very much the healing that I have done for my whole family,
Mhm.
and also the healing that I am doing for other people. But now I'm also training healers who can support even more people. And so I feel that there is a ripple effect of the work we do, and it's not linear. So every time somebody heals, they impact 4 or 5 different people around them, right? And so when you do this, you do it for yourself, but also you do it for so many other people. And I feel that effect, and it's very satisfying and comforting to know that we can bring so much change.
Wow. So beautiful. Just to know that simply by you, not simply, because healing is not simple, but at the end of the day, simply by being who you are, genuinely you, other people are liberated.
Yes.
And I love that so much. Gulara, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I'm so grateful for you sharing your heart with us. I want to thank everyone for joining the two of us for this conversation. If this episode resonated with you, please remember to comment, rate, and review the podcast. You know that your feedback helps me grow. And until next time, I want you to go live your life on your terms and please mind your business. We will catch you in the next episode.